welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am your host, Tristan Baystide. To my right, we have Sam Longtooth, and to my left, we have Brandon Wildhunt.
Yay! It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be Swiftstride. Am I right?
All right, so to my left, we have Brandon Swiftstride.
Dang it!
Just had to say something.
So
yeah, we're shifting gears here a little bit, and we're continuing our delve of different races of D&D by talking about...
shifters.
No.
Yes! Yes, that's what we're talking about. The shifter race.
Yes, we're talking about shifters.
It doesn't sound like a race. It sounds like someone who you don't trust.
Who are those people over there? Oh, those be shifters.
Those are the shifters over there. Don't trust them.
It's like the greasers, but they're just a gang in a town. Who's that over there? Those be the shifters. You don't want to mess with them.
Which is not anything close to what this race actually is.
Absolutely not. This is where, just to give you kind of a great, or I guess just a look into what shifters are, they're often called the Were-Touched. Right. So, as many believe, they are the descendants of humans and lycanthropes.
Which just means it's lycanthrope. It's a fancy word for lycanthropy and someone who has it. And that's just a fancy way of saying werewolf.
Yes. I was like, how long are we going to get to werewolf?
You.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's specifically werewolves, because especially in D&D, you're going to find a bunch of different type of
werewolves, were-bears, were-tigers, were-cats, were-dogs,
were-rats,
were-rats, were-frogs.
So essentially, it's
gross.
They're humanoids with a bestial aspect. They're very much like, they're were-people.
Like Beast.
That's
in Beauty and the Beast, just not as
I was going to go like Beast from X-Men.
That's what I was thinking.
That also works. Both, they're pretty much the same thing. Just one has more fur than the other.
Feel like those are a little too extreme. So it's like you have to look at it like a tier, right? Like here's humans, here's werewolves, right? So then somewhere between is lycanthropes. And then somewhere below that is shifters. So you kind of have to think of it like a dumbed down, like a watered down werewolf or a watered down werewolf.
Right, because they definitely walk that edge between the wilds and the world around them. They really have to kind of pick. Do they pick the more animal aspect of them, or do they pick more of the humanoid aspect and try to be a part of civilization?
And the descendant you come from in backstory / your own character's history dictates what kind of shifter you are and what you shift into when you like a werewolf, transform closer to the animalistic nature. So more often people go with the classics: a bear, a wolf, a cat. Technically, a boar would work. Things like that. And when they're younger, they take that in one of a few ways. When they're younger, they're either guided from their own internal animal spirit, and they take that as a guiding spirit. They kind of just acknowledge it and live with it, and either fight against it and become more humanoid, or they embrace it and take that personality of whatever animal or whatever thing they are descendant from. There's many different animals you can pick from, but the easiest way for trying to narrow it down is through 4 different starts.
Right, and this is where some of the nicknames we did today were some of the examples. Like you said, there's 4 sub-races that are common. So to start with, there's Beast Hide, which they are often, like you said, boar or bear. Or they tend to be the more stoic and stubborn and thick-skinned.
Like you think of a boar.
Or, or
a bear.
Yeah, so there's definitely those up. And we used Longtooth as an example for Sam. You want to tell us what Longtooths?
Longtooths are more like your traditional wolf-type packs. They tend to have the pack mentality, and they're probably closer to the werewolfy aspect of things.
I just want to say, since this is the closest we're going to get, imagine a group named Shifters that are wolf, but they're kind of like the Sharks and the Jets, and they just come at you with the like claws and fangs and like.
So what you're telling me is that there's the sharks and a bunch of Triton.
And then there's the shifters.
Or a bunch of long tooth.
Yeah, no, I would love that. Someone please make that.
Just a West Side Story indeed.
So you run with a pack or a gang if you're in the east vicinity songs. Can't be copywritten.
Now, this is one that would definitely work if you're looking for someone that would work at a gang. Not necessarily. They would have that gang mentality of the gang above all because it's their pact. So we used both Swift Stride and Wild Hunt for you, Brandon. So why don't you start off with at least Swift Stride?
The Swift Stride are most often like the feline type predators or rats. You know, it's the quick, it's the agile, it's the slender, the things in the animal kingdom that you see most of the time that dart past things. Like the easy way you want to do it, a Swift Stride, if you want to just find the bare bones, the best thing that fits it is a cheetah. Something that's fast, has strength, agile, and then the last one is the Wild Hunt.
Right.
And this one has the most opening. If it's an animal that tracks its prey, it can fall under Wild Hunt.
Shark.
Technically true, but really weird to explain to someone that my great-great-grandfather was actually a were-shark. How'd they get that?
That sounds fantastic.
He was just out swimming and he got bit, and then the next day he turned into a shark.
That sounds like
then he met my grandma. And you know how that goes.
So
An old story of a shark and a woman.
So I'm making a shark shifter. I'm making one now. It's gonna be like Street Shark.
No.
Yes, I can make a Street
You were
Shark.
thinking Street Shark, and I was thinking like Jabberjaw.
You know what that means?
That's how Grandpa used to say. He just used to walk around in his were-shark form.
You can make
No
a
respect.
Swift Stride of one of the biker mice from Mars.
You could. You
My
totally
childhood.
could. So that we're just going. You can make any of this, but to make it more reality, we have someone in our Bards and Nobles campaign who's a Wild Hunt, who is more
Sapien. He's like
sapien.
He's like
Yeah.
a monkey.
Because now, not every sapien hunts, but they have the ability to, especially if you take into consideration. We came from them and we hunt.
Well,
theoretically,
controversial and yet so brave.
right? So you could. That's why I allow that one, because there are known stories of packs of wild monkeys chasing something down. That's tracking its prey. It may be more aggressive, but that's the type of thing.
Yeah, this is definitely where as we discussed with a lot of these races, especially something like the Arakokra, where you're talking to your DM, you can get away with some stuff that just kind of fits. Like if you have an animal, like if you were like, I want to make a were-shark person, you could talk to your DM and just be like, hey, I love sharks.
How about a were-piranha?
Even harder for me to understand why
English.
someone.
There's actually other races that you could probably make those work better with. If you want to go aquatic, hang on. We'll talk later about that in another episode.
But you totally could. If you want to go shifter, you just need to be very convincing.
Yes.
And even though there's only 4 categories, 2 shifters of the same category don't even have to come relatively close on how they act.
No.
Yeah.
They are very diverse in a lot of the ways. Like as we talk about the different animals, they're very much the same way where they can be that diverse.
Like, I'll just take Beasthide, for example. You can have a boar that's all about charging headstrong in and just ramming the problem, and you can have a bear who is more slow to get there until they're angered or become aggressive, and then they use their force to pounce and climb on something, and that's just a way of thinking of things. They don't literally just run in and go ah and
slow to anger, but you don't
want to anger them. While a boar would be very charge into anger.
Right, and as we talk about their diversity, we're talking about as far as how they look, it's just as diverse as we've said. But they have a similar height to humans, as
They're
well
born
as
from them.
Yes, as well as their builds. They are typically a little bit more flexible, and it really just depends on which one you go with. Their facial features have bestial kind of like things, like often with larger eyes, flat noses, pointed ears. Some shifters may have more prominent canine teeth. They can grow fur like hair.
I just thought of a way to help describe this. Kind of like an Animorph that doesn't know how to fully Animorph.
Or Hermione halfway through probably.
Big oof energy right there.
But I mean, yeah, this is like, for example, it usually depends on the beast that they're affected with. For example, if they're a Swift Strider, they might have more of the streamlined cat-like features. If they're the Beast Hide, if they are more like a boar, they may have a little bit more of a snout. They may have like the tusk kind of like a.
They're not as big. They're
they look a little bit more like an orc. In like for our case with Solomon in Barnes and Nobles, he has larger ears. His nose is a little bit more the simian. His mouth is a little bit wider, and he definitely has like the hair that comes down and like kind of like the mutton chop kind of feeling. He looks more like a monkey.
So that's many different ways to do it.
Right.
There's only one real wrong way, and that's all the fish that he said. That's the only wrong way to make it.
What, I can't have an anglerfish just comes up like...
Once again, we can look at another race for those options.
Yes. An abomination, I would kill it. Deserves to die.
Takes off the hood, just...
Yep, no, I hate that. So, shifters are not really from the usual Faerun or material plane. They're from the land of Eberron, which has been around for a while. This is its second book, just came out. So there's history there if you want to look into Eberron. It's a really cool place, very steampunky, very very sad at times though. But they're kind of free range, if you want to put it. I'm just trying to use as many animal things as possible. They're free range and they're very like self-reliant and want the freedom they have. And there's an old shifter proverb. I can't believe that someone wrote old shifter proverb and it's a reality. What a world we live in. Always be prepared for the journey yet to come. So that's kind of the easiest way to boil it down.
So they're the Boy Scouts.
It doesn't work. Yes.
What?
They also, depending on what class you pick, kind of leans into shifter and what you want. So let's say you pick a barbarian.
Totem.
I know. Totem of any animal will fit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can get your rage from the animal you have.
Mm.
Just imagine a cat getting angry. When they rage, he just goes down to all fours and just sticks his backs up and just frills out and his tail gets all puffy.
Or
he's raging.
I mean, or you could do a beast hide and take a totem of the bear, and you're already from a bear, and you're just even more bear than bear before.
I could barely know him.
Yeah.
So that's just a way to do it. So you want to take us on how you would name your shifter?
So shifters don't have a language of their own, usually because they grew up in blended communities. So their names will typically overlap with the names of the culture that they're from, but they do have what's called wandering names. So usually with their friends, they'll use their personal names, which can be like a blend of cultures. But their wandering names are typically tied to a physical trait or a personality trait, such as badger, bear, moon, wolf, talon, something like that, something animalistic.
I'm not gonna lie, these are my least favorite naming conventions because it's just like,
Yeah,
hey, what's
yeah.
your ancestry? Oh, I'm a bear. Your name's Bear now. Ah, now I'm the fifth bear in the family.
But you can always take a more like
Bear the fifth.
a different type of approach, like especially if you like wordplay or something. You can always do like Winnie or like Winnie the Pooh. I mean, you can get a little creative with these.
I always imagine
the
doing
Pooh
it
the
where
Barbarian.
it's the joke of like the big guy's called Tiny or
give me
Little
back my
John.
honey.
Having it so someone maybe there's one who's more cat-like and you call him Dog just for
Rude.
well, I mean, because especially if it's among friends and whatnot.
It better be among friends. If you're just walking to a shifter that looks like a feline and you go, is your name Dog? All their friends are going to be like, nope.
So, I mean, like, your actual name might be something like Xander, but maybe, like, to the people you don't know that you just, like, happen across, you're like, yeah, my name's Grim.
Is that Xander with an X or a Z?
Yes.
Yes. There's a bee.
XZ.
There's a bee.
I'm a bee shifter. I'm angry. Watch me.
Oh no! So would that be long tooth but long stinger?
No, I hate this.
I don't like this. We're gonna
All right.
dip
I've
this.
made a mistake.
So let's shift from names to traits. So Sam, why don't you let us know a little bit about the traits?
So they tend to mature quickly, physically and emotionally. They reach adulthood, young adulthood, around 10, and rarely live more than 70 years old. So they do have that shortened lifespan, which, I mean, sort of kind of makes a little bit of sense. When
Dog
you think about
years?
it.
I'm just imagining, a shifter that parents, don't really show the signs of a shifter, and then you have a full-blood shifter child who is a beast hide, and they're 10 years old, and they're, like, fully mature, and it's like, Billy, it's time for bed, brush your teeth. I don't wanna!
I mean...
Billy, now!
Billy,
I'll get
I'll get more into that later. I mean, it's
fair,
kind of
yeah.
an interesting thing, though, because I always like it when there's races that reach adulthood at a young age, because I think it's interesting to see them almost sort of not have that experience or wisdom of the world, but still be considered adults.
They'd be the size of an adult then.
Yeah.
But they'd have the most likely the mental capacity, depending on how they're raised, of either a young adult or a child. So the Billy, go brush your teeth, and then Billy's like, I'm going to body check you now.
Which can also lead into the next sort of trait of a shifter, which is alignment. Maybe because of this lack of experience, they're these grown adults without a lot of wisdom of the world, and they're a little bit more chaotic. They value freedom, and they value, like, just being themselves, and I feel like a lot of them will tend towards chaotic as opposed to, like, good and evil. They're just...
What's it like to save a person? What's it like to eat a person?
See, I always just imagine that puberty is just a hell of a time. Like, maybe it goes from, like, they're just cognitive reason just clicks one day. Oh, I am a man now. I am adult. I am... Hello, mother.
I'm getting my lunch money back from Tim.
They're gonna pick me for kickball today, Mom.
I don't know. Your feet will break but they're gonna pick me if you like it or not.
Okay, so then we should say that as their size goes, they are still technically medium. Like we said earlier, they tend to have the same kind of height and build as humans, but of course some variants as well.
Their lowest that's recommended is like 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
That's the lowest if for some reason you don't modify that at all. Which Eberron kind of brought back in the want or desire to roll for your size. So I think we should just touch base on this as the first Eberron, the first time they really brought it back. Your size modifier is 2d8, and then your height is 4 foot 6 inches plus whatever you rolled in the 2d8. And then that would be your size modifier, and then your weight is 90 plus 2d4 times your modifier. So if you're really unlucky and you're lucky or unlucky depending, your size modifier is 16. That would be 4 feet 6 inches plus 16 more inches, and then your weight is 90. Let's say 98 plus 16. You're relatively thin.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it's always, important too to take in certain aspects of what your shifter is. Like if you're from a bear, like you're probably going to be a bit stockier, a bit bigger, broad shouldered. Like I can't imagine. Well, I mean, you can be a small bear, but I just think
Sun bears.
I think it would make more sense to sort of maybe base that off that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to roll for it, you can. That's why they gave you those equations, how to do that. If you want to make it just truly random, because you don't. Actually, like in real life, you don't get to pick your size. You grow into it. So that's what you can use. No matter what your size is, though, your walking speed is
30 feet.
the basics.
Yes. Because, again, you are still classified as a medium creature, and that tends to be the basis for a lot of it. Now, because you are a shifter, and most animals have something that helps them out, which would be dark vision.
Oh, they got their special night eyes.
Yes.
My eyes, my
special
eyes.
Yeah, so again, just as a quick refresher as far as dark vision go, you can have superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see in dim light for 60 feet as if it were bright light, and then in darkness as if it were dim light. You can't discern color in darkness, only shades of gray.
Which is actually most animals can't see full spectrum of colors anyway, so
You have cat
you
eyes.
you have the added advantage when the light's out, you can see in full color.
Yes.
So best of both worlds. It's like you're shifting between the two.
Speaking of shifting, Sam, do you want to tell us a bit more about the shifting?
The bread and butter.
As a bonus action, you can make your already sort of beastish appearance even more bestial. The transformation lasts for a minute, or until you die, or until you revert it as a bonus action. So when you shift, you gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your Constitution modifier, and you gain additional benefits that depend on your sub-race.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on your sub-race depends on how your shifting sort of affects.
Right.
But you can do that once per long or short rest.
And we'll talk more about the sub-races in a second.
Yeah.
So just to finish off the normal traits of all the shifters, as far as languages go, you can speak, read, write, common.
You are a basic person.
Now, because Sam did mention that earlier, where they don't have a language of their own.
Yep.
So that is why you speak common. So this is where if you're hoping to get another language out of it, depending on the background you pick,
And your DM and who
Or
you
your
grew up with.
backstory.
Yes.
Yeah.
I grew up with elves. You would know Elvish.
No, I
And not common. Because if they only speak Elvish, you wouldn't
it's
know
true.
common. So
Yes.
Yeah.
if you as a DM, think about how to equalize that so they just don't get free stuff while other races don't, because it wouldn't make sense for an orc to grow up in certain places so they can't have other things. Try and make it equal unless your player rolled like all 10s and you just want to give them a little bit of an advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it usually comes down to the DM's discretion as far as, like, let's say that you only have the common, you're like, I'd like one more language, and they're like, okay, where'd you grow up? We grew up with elves. All right, common and elvish.
There you go.
So, that was not too broken.
Yeah, it's not like I can know every language.
Right.
Um,
So now we're getting into the sub races, and this is we briefly touched on them before with the Beast Hide, the Longtooth, the Swift Stride, and the Wild Hunt. This gives you, like as Sam talked about with the shifting, a little bit more of the specific things.
And as you notice, there is no general ability score increase, because there's not like with the Aasimar, that one you got a charisma bonus and then your sub race gave you something else.
Right.
Each sub race gives you their own thing. So
Right. And we saw this with a couple of other races that we've discussed in the past, where it was only depending on the sub race that you got. Like for example, Genasi's.
the only based.
Yeah.
So
with Beast Hide, this is again the stoic and strong. They are the ones that tend to be draw strength and stability. They are typically tied to like bears or boars or creatures of that kind of thing, as we've discussed before, and they're usually known for being tough. They're naturally athletic. This is where you have proficiency in athletics.
you ever seen a bear chase after something? Imagine that bear is 6 feet tall, not on the ground, carrying a broad axe.
Terrifying.
And because of the way they're tough, they're strong, you get a +2 to your Constitution as well as a +1 to your Strength.
This leads not towards wizards.
I'm going to be a wizard bear.
You can.
Bear wizard.
I hate it.
And so then this is where we get into the shifting feature. And again, this is like Sam was discussing with the shifting part of it. Whenever you shift as a Beast Hide, you gain a 1d6 additional temporary hit points. When shifted, you get a +1 bonus to your AC.
So-
you are
And that's 1d6 additional in addition to your level plus your con modifier.
So
Yes.
and those do stack.
Yes.
Temporary hit points don't normally stack. So if you get 5 and then someone gives you 6, you get 6.
No, these stack.
These go together. So that's
Right.
really good and really rare. So use it. And this one leans definitely towards being a barbarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
A barbarian,
absolutely.
if you want to, like I said, if you want to, like, if you want to triple down with this, barbarian,
Totem.
of the bear.
If you're a bear shifter with Totem of the Bear,
Get that high dex, because your constitution and strength are going to go up through this, so make sure you put into dex, because in your AC will probably be a 17, depending on what, like if you have like a +4 or 5, or +4, a 17, this will go to an 18, you take half damage and everything, you're really hard to hit.
Yeah.
You will become the epicenter of a battle with this,
Yeah.
Yes.
which is kind of what the Beast Hide's known for,
Right.
being that stoic hero. So, and he's in a party hero. So, that definitely, if you want to lean into what your Beast Hide nature is, that's
like you
it.
said, it's really geared for a barbarian. So when we get to Longtooth, as Sam the Longtooth will tell us.
Yeah, so long-tooth shifters tend to be more fierce and aggressive. Like we said, they like wolves, more canine, but they can also be like tigers, hyenas, and other predator types.
Ooh, I know.
Their ability score increases. You get +2 in strength and a +1 in dex. You also have the proficiency in intimidation because you're very scary.
You're scary.
And the shifting feature is you can use your elongated fangs to make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. And if you hit with your fangs, you deal an additional piercing damage 1d6 plus your strength modifier instead of using normal bludgeoning damage for an unarmed strike.
So you bite them. It's not magical, so that's important. But if you're a monk, it would count as magic
because
when you reach the
your
level.
unarmed strike technically
My
is
special
considered.
teeth.
Yeah.
So you get magic teeth.
This one would lend. You do have the strength and dex, so you could put it into monk or fighter. Use your tooth as sort of like a backup.
Yeah, backup weapon.
Like, don't make me bite you. You wouldn't like me when I bite you.
Paladin could work if you're not wearing heavy armor. Like anything that uses strength to hit.
Yeah,
this would be a good one.
Absolutely. We have Swift Stride. This is where your shifters are graceful and quick.
Like cats.
Like cats. As we've discussed before, they are difficult to pin down in a physical situation. Like cats. This is where your dex is going to increase by 2, and your charisma is going to increase by 1, because you're a cat.
You're very graceful.
Like, oh, you're adorable. Look at you go.
And that leans into you getting proficiency in acrobatics.
Absolutely. And then as your shifting feature for this one, when you're shifted, your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Additionally, you can move up to 10 feet as a reaction when a creature ends its turn within 5 feet of you. The reactive movement doesn't provoke opportunity.
Which is
so
really good.
Absolutely.
This one leads into rogue and monk.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to be a rogue that's going around going like, and away, and away, like this is the way to do it. Because you can disengage on your turn and their turn.
Yes. So, why don't you tell us a bit about the Wild Hunt?
Wild Hunt.
So
this one's technically, I love the Swift Stride, but I like the Wild Hunt the most, and it's just really cool that, Solomon, Chris picked it. Mm-hmm. They are, constantly open to the world around them and the threats going on, and, they are very excelled in the, instead of looking introspective, they're very outward in how they view things and look at the world and prepare around. They're always, engaged with, the nature and are good hunters and the spiritual connection with the outside. Mm-hmm. They get wisdom and dexterity increase. So wisdom by 2, dex by 1. And then they have proficiency with the survival skill because they are trackers, hunters. And then when they shift, they get advantage on wisdom checks. And no creature within 30 feet of them can make an attack roll with advantage, which is really good.
Yeah.
So even if something like they cast a spell that gives them advantage, they don't get it.
Or if you're being flanked.
They don't get advantage, which is really good. And that one definitely leans into what Chris picked.
Yes.
With being a cleric. That wisdom gives them that extra buff into being a more well-rounded character and a stronger cleric. Also, having advantage on wisdom stuff.
Pretty nice, considering most of our group is real bad when it comes to wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's your bread and butter as a cleric, being wise.
Yes.
Also works with druids.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Both can be, it's a spiritual leader, so spirituality can come from, a deity or from nature. So Wild Hunt definitely leans into, if you want to do a monk that uses more, wisdom stuff versus dex, or if you want to be a cleric, or if you want to be a druid, all of this leans into the Wild Hunt.
Right. And don't feel like you have to be stuck in that nature of picking something like, if you're a shifter, you don't have to pick a druid.
Yeah, you can pick whatever you want. It's just these.
Some of them are geared, as you said, very much. Like now, I feel like I have to make a beast hide totem of the bear.
And watch it just wreck things.
Yes.
Because that's the fun. You're doing this to have fun, and you want to win. Unless you have some
win. There is no winning in D&D.
Only sadness.
Only sadness and pain.
Okay, I need to. Oh boy, my campaign needs to have 10 beach days. Yeah, so I mean, you can totally, any one of these can lead to a spellcaster. I mean, if you want to do the one that makes it, so if you want to be Swift Stride, that leads into sorcerer and warlock because the charisma boost and it's harder to pin them down.
Yeah.
But the spellcasters, you can totally, like I said, be one. There's many different ways you can become one. If you want to, druid's a good way to do spellcaster, so it's cleric. But if you want to do the more arcane, it kind of leads away from wizard. Unless you roll those stats and you get an 18, you're like, there's my intelligence score.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, that's how, at least from me, trying to triple down and make interesting and good characters so I'm not, the person dragging the group down, being like, wait!
So that's kind of a quick rundown of shifters. As with all of them, we kind of discuss our favorite shifters or of that race of which ones we've made or we've interacted with. As per usual, Sam, do you want to start us off with a shifter?
Yeah, so in the previous campaign that we've sort of put on an indefinite hiatus, I had Wolf, who was an NPC.
That's right.
Shifter rogue. Really liked him.
Did not.
I did.
Because we're not playing it, he would have been a huge help for you guys.
He would have been a help, but it would have been, it's the same thing like with Marshall. He would have been a huge help, but you're kind of just like...
Yeah. But he also actually had a younger sister named Windy, which was short for Wendigo. So they were both based off of the Longtooth shifters. I really liked them. They're very special to me for certain backstory reasons.
See, I took Wendy as more of like Three Little Pigs. He's huffing up, bluffing, I'll blow your house down.
No, Wendigo.
I like Wendigo. That's a fun one.
I like Wendy because the Three Little Pigs. Take that! You just hate. You hate.
Well, that's your opinion.
You hate B-sides.
That's my opinion.
What about yours?
I haven't had made too many, but now I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, so I'm going to make a polar bear shifter.
Make a roller bear. They're bigger and stronger.
Okay, sure.
Roller bears, actually real. Look them up. It's when a grizzly and a polar bear meet with natural habitats.
Cool. So a roller bear, and he's going to be a barbarian, totem of the bear. I'm going to call him Yeti.
Hey, guys.
And I'm going to make it so he enjoys honey a lot.
Oh,
There's a rumbly in my tummy.
But he'll say things like that, but just in his big voice, like,
There's a rumbly in my tummy.
you okay, Yeti?
Yes.
I just want hard to get lost.
There's honey nearby. I can smell it.
It might be my mead, bro.
Give me the mead. It's liquid honey.
He's got a drinking problem.
Noted. I love Solomon.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I never really thought about using like a simian because humans exist. So
and that's a valid point.
If we really wanted to, and I'm not spoiling anything. It may or may not exist. Missing link. Someone's gonna be like, he's the missing link.
Huh.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, because with a lot of these, you think more of like predatory, like you think of like the lycanthropes.
Wolf, a bear.
But there are predatory apes,
Yeah.
a bit more of the carnivore
Mandrels.
side of things.
Yeah, it's just when you hear shifter and you read about the shifter, your brain doesn't immediately go to something like that. So yeah, I think this more simian kind of aspect is a great idea, and I think it definitely adds something to it.
It's definitely creative coming from a newer player like
Absolutely,
Chris.
this is where it is the benefit of having Chris, who is a very new player, coming in with just ideas, because Chris is a writer and an artist by trade, more or less. And I've spent years with him doing stuff like that. So it's great to have someone come in with little knowledge of D&D and be like, "Cool, I want to make a monkey person," and we're like, "Okay, we'll make it happen, I guess." And then having something like a shifter and it working out pretty well.
Took me a solid hour of combing over the races again and again and again and again and again to be like, what fits this?
Right, and luckily with shifter being somewhat vague on certain things,
Especially Wild Hunt.
Right, it's kind of like when we talk about things like the Aarakocra and stuff like that, where there is that ground to be like, here you go, do something with this. Talk to your DM, see if they allow it. Sorry, and so I think Solomon is definitely going to be an interesting character because first off, we did note that he is a cleric. He's a Twilight cleric, which is one of the new Unearthed Arcana.
It's an Unearthed Arcana, which makes it so his dark vision is unending.
Yes.
So you know when that your
sees
cat
forever.
just stares off into the distance, unknowing of what's out there? That's when he can do all the time. He just activates and just go, oh, I can see over there. Cool.
So he's got a lot of just new things coming into it that I think it's just going to be a learning experience for all of us, like you as a DM, us as other players, him as the player. I think it's all just going to be a fun experience, especially because he's essentially a surfer guy as far as personality.
Yeah, man, it's totally cool, man.
Nah,
like,
Brett.
we just do this stuff, man.
He's very chill.
No, Brett's more like this.
Nope, no end to this. Let's move on.
All right, so yeah, we're going to shift back to the ending here. So, yeah, those are shifters in a nutshell. They're definitely another one of those races where it really leads into using your imagination, coming up with something new, or kind of like, as you like to say, like you hunker down on an idea and just go through it through and through, and having just a good time with it. So yeah, shifters are definitely ones if you're looking into that more animalistic side. If you want like a werewolf that's not a werewolf, definitely a good idea if you're kind of into that kind of thing. So until we see you guys next time, D10tion dismissed.